Hi, friend. My guest this week is Monica Nassif, who built an iconic brand. But her 93-year-old mother, Thelma, is who you'll be thinking about. She says yes to life, embraces failure, and never stops seeking adventure. And Monica shares how that same mindset can help you find and follow your passion. You're going to love her Midwest, no-nonsense advice. This episode is presented by Grand Teton Ancient Grains. Their small organic family farm never uses pesticides, herbicides, or glyphosate. Their soil is healthy and alive, and so are their crops that are grown, harvested, and milled on site. Every product goes from their farm to your house. Today, I want to highlight their grains. If you are sick and tired, like me, of brown rice and quinoa, try something different. They have einkorn berries, corazon berries, emmer, millet, spelt, and many other grains that I've never tried, but I have now. I use them all the time in my bowls, and they're a total game changer. They're hearty, delicious, and packed with nutrients. Upgrade your grains, pastas, and flour at ancientgrains.com. Free shipping when you fill a box. You can find that information in the show notes. And now, let's get to the show. I'm Lauren Bernick, helping you make the rest of your life the best of your life. Welcome to Age Like a Badass Mother. Monica Nassif is the founder of the beloved Mrs. Meyer's Clean Day products, which completely revolutionized household cleaning products. You know and love these cult-like cleaning products because they are aromatherapeutic, earth-friendly, and just plain make you feel happy when you use them. She sold her company to S.C. Johnson in 2008, and the Mrs. Meyer's brand continues to thrive in the marketplace. Monica's latest project is a book called I Bottled My Mother, The Mrs. Meyer's Story, Grit, Grime, and Growing a Business. Please welcome Monica Nassif. Hi, Monica.
I'm delighted to be here, Lauren.
I'm delighted for you to be here. As I was just saying to you, I just read your book. I loved it so much. It's like, to me, it was a love letter, like to two people. One, to entrepreneurs, particularly female entrepreneurs, but also to your mother. I could really feel that.
Oh, yeah. She was and she's still alive. She's a huge inspiration to me. And I really just wanted to honor her, everything I learned from her about being a leader.
I mean, what a childhood you had. And, I'm going to talk about it in a second, but you're the oldest daughter. You have twin boys above you, so there's 9 children, right?
Yeah, there's 9 children. My mother, at age 31, had 9 children under 10. So she started with twin boys, then me, 3 girls, and then we called the 3 little boys.
The 3 little boys.
They're still called the 3 little boys.
The 3 little boys. It's funny. It reminded me of my husband's family. They're Catholic also, obviously. And everybody's named after a saint, like your family. There's a Jane. His mother was Jane. And my daughter's name is Jane for his mother. And Jane was a nurse, kind of like your mother. And, so I don't think that it was quite as good. I don't think they were quite as good as having that good controlled chaos at their house. Like, it seemed like your mother had everything in line. But can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. My mother approached everything as she was in charge. She was the drill sergeant, but she's also very playful. She just had a very joyful attitude about life and work, and it was always work before play. That was her motto. She grew up on a dirt poor farm in Kansas during the Depression, and her parents both took an attitude towards work as this is the way our life is. She said, I don't remember thinking I was poor or I didn't have anything. It's just the way it was on the farm. And so they brought a lot of joy, if you will, just to kind of everyday, chores around the house, from milking the cows, bringing in the chickens, milking the cows, all these things you have to do on a farm to make it survive. So she brought that joyful attitude toward work to our house. And she was always bossing us around, telling us what to do. She had a lot of rules, trust me.
It seemed like your day was built around chores, like you said. Well, with 11 people in the house, it kind of has to be, right? Just to get things done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it seemed like, I feel like after I read this book, I was like, okay, this is where I screwed up with my kids. I think I waited till they were too old to introduce chores. I bet toddlers had chores just to get them acclimated, right? Or just, what's the earliest chores?
Well, they were the assistants, right? Oh. So if the older kid was mopping up the floor, the younger kid was drying. My mom tells a story of she had these gorgeous wooden floors, and she used to put the heavy socks on the little kids' feet, and when the Johnson wax went on the floor, they would slide across the floor. But they could,
oh my gosh,
they could pick up their toys. They could hand her clothespins, when she's outside hanging up laundry, which she loved. All her laundry goes outside to hang up. Even in the winter, she'll find a few warm hours. So you start out as an assistant, if you will, and you work your way up to cleaning a full room. That's the way she kind of operated at our house.
I think that's so smart, because also, the little kids want to do what the big kids are doing anyway. So there was probably never any pushback about like, oh, I don't want to do any chores, And so I was like, oh, I screwed that up. It's too late for that. But and then, also she had you guys get jobs when you were fairly young as well, and really, I think, prepped you so nicely for that.
Yeah, both my father and my mother believed that hard work and getting your own job, earning your own money was the way to become an adult. And she had a constant saying as a child, I'm raising adults, not children. Mm-hmm. And she said, you came fast and you left fast. So I had to ensure you had survival skills. And one of those was work. You had to get a job. If you were in a sport, in high school or grade school, that was something different. But if you didn't have a sport, you had to get a job. And honestly, I wanted a job. The house was so crazy. I wanted to earn my own money. I was desperate to do anything outside of the house.
I bet.
I was kind of pre-Title IX when there wasn't a lot of sports for girls in high school. So I was eager to find work outside the house.
And I love that she told you, I think it was, is there anything else I can do before you leave your job, right?
Oh, yeah. She said, you want to make sure that your boss will never fire you. And what you do is before you leave, you say to your boss, is there anything else I can do? Ugh, she goes, no one says brilliant.
That. Right. No one says. I mean, she really prepped you guys. Okay. So now tell me a little bit more about your mom, because I'm fascinated with her. She's 93, right? She still lives 93. Alone in your childhood home.
Yep. She's still in our family home. She's just a very happy person. And I think it's a couple things. She says yes to everything. She has that attitude of saying yes. She's super adventuresome. For example, my brother Tim said to her last fall, Mom, I'll take you on a dream vacation. Anywhere in the world, where do you want to go? She goes, I want to go on a safari in Africa. He's like, all right. So what he does is, and they can only have these duffel bags because they're flying on all these little planes around Africa to these various safari places. And he makes a tag that says, ask me about Mrs. Myers.
Oh, God.
And I told my brother Tim, you don't need that silly tag. She's going to tell everybody about in Africa that she is the real Mrs. Myers. But she loves adventure. She'll, if I called her today and said, hey, Mom, you want to go to Mumbai? She'd probably go, yeah, let's, that sounds interesting. My father and my mother clipped on downhill skis for the first time in their 50s. Wow. They hiked the Grand Canyon in the middle of the snowstorm. They taught us not to be afraid of adventure. Mm-hmm. And that is a gift. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. And you weren't. And so, I kind of guess that's a good segue into the entrepreneurial part of this, because I guess, you had a love of cleaning. I particularly cracked up at your love of ironing, like you'd like to watch Sex in the City and iron. I loved that.
I do.
I hate ironing. Oh,
I love ironing. In fact, now I'm doing ironing in Bridgerton. I just like silly shows that require no thought.
Oh, yeah. That's so
other than
funny.
Pure enjoyment. And now I can iron. I love it. I know it's crazy. Believe me, none of my friends iron.
No, I mean, well, but I do like cleaning, and I also do find it meditative and kind of therapeutic. And and so forth. Okay, so tell me about, so you started your first brand, which was, the higher level, or how do you say
I would call it the more higher end. It was named
higher end?
Caldria. Yeah, it was
Caldria.
named after my two daughters, Calla and Andrea. And I saw this opening at the premium end of cleaning because a lot of things were happening in the marketplace. The consumer at the time started eating all organic foods. Then she started using all
This is
organic product on her
2000?
skin. So to me, it was just
Like
yes,
what
it was
year was this?
2000.
2000? Okay.
Yeah.
So
So to
go
me, it
ahead.
was just a matter of time before the consumer woke up and said, gosh, I have all these chemicals in my house.
Right.
I have kids. I have pets. This is dangerous. I don't want to, bring those odors and those toxic chemicals into my home. So it just made sense from a trend standpoint, too, of what the consumer was doing. And also I saw, here's Neiman Marcus, right? The fashion retail at the time was selling French ironing water infused with lavender for
Perfect for you.
$38 in a glass jug. And I thought, okay, something is changing. The consumer is embracing all these upscale ways to care for her home.
Right.
And I thought, wouldn't it be awesome if this was like personal care for your home, where hand soap and hand lotion would sit on your kitchen counter, much like your beautiful KitchenAid mixture, your Nespresso, your beautiful French white ceramics, your gorgeous linens. I just thought of the Williams-Sonoma consumer. What should we have? What would she have in her home, and how could we fit into that? That's how I thought about the brand, and that was Caldria. And honestly, I didn't know how to go to the mass level. I didn't really know how to go into the major grocery stores and the Target and the Walmarts of the world. So I grew up in the retail industry. I got my start with Target my first job as I was an executive speechwriter. And I learned a lot about consumer trends, how you really put the consumer first, fashion, and I just loved that industry. And I thought I could create a whole category of cleaning unlike anybody had seen before. And I thought I have to start high end because you can't defy gravity in retail. You can't go into Walmart first and then say, oh, now I want to jump to Neiman Marcus. It just doesn't
Right.
work that way. So I thought if I start high, then I could bring the product down as we scale. That was kind of my thinking.
Oh, that's so smart. And so you knocked off your own product because you were like, okay, pretty soon somebody's going to catch on and make like a lower end, even though Mrs. Myers is still kind of high end, but a lower end version of Caldrea. So, and then your mother was the inspiration for that. So
Yeah, I thought the concept was catching on. The Caldria brand was in about 3,000 to 4,000 stores, all these specialty stores around the U.S., and some high-end grocery stores, really high-end grocery stores in San Francisco and New York. And I thought, gosh, 80% of cleaning products are sold at the mass level. It's only a matter of time before someone looks at our category and goes, well, I'm going to knock her off. And I thought, no, we're going to knock ourselves off. I had a boss who always told me, Monica, reach for the branch above you while you saw off the one you're sitting on. And I never forgot that. And I thought about this with the Mrs. Myers brand. Let's just knock off ourselves. In fact, I said to the team, okay, if we wanted to if we want to just completely take out Caldria, what would we do? And that's how we approached it. We brought in a different design team. We had the same people at our headquarters because we were such a small company at the time. But that's how we thought about it to get the brand started. The Mrs. Myers brand.
And then I guess your mother was the ultimate inspiration for it, and she kind of became the outward facing brand ambassador as well.
She did. So we were brainstorming about, okay, Caldria is kind of European, it's fancy, it's for fancy people, it's not the high end. What are we about? I'm Midwestern. I grew up in Iowa. Let's just take our personal values that are important to us and see if we can create a brand around that. And we were brainstorming, and I'm like, this is just like my mom. She's an avid gardener. She reuses, recycles, upcycles everything. She's passionate about Mother Earth. She grew up in the Depression. She knows the value of saving, of reusing. So I called her. I said, "Hey, Mom, would you like to be a brand?" And she goes, of course, she's in the garden. And her first comment is, "Hey, it sure would be nice if you got down here and helped me weed the garden. You know, that no matter how old you are, Lauren, you still have to do chores if you go see my mom." And she goes, "What's a brand?" And I said, don't worry about it now. Just say yes so I can kind of get moving, because we were racing to the marketplace to get this brand started.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, that reminds me more about, your mother and the gardening, and I feel like, so she's 93, right?
Yeah. She still has a garden. In fact, we built her, my sisters and I, well, I didn't do it, I watched. My sisters built this waist level wooden garden rectangle so she can garden without bending down.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I know. So she loves that.
Oh my gosh. But I just feel like she was so ahead of her time because she exercised, she watched Jack LaLanne, she ate out of her garden. She was the original farm to table. I mean, and
that's the way she was raised.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happens when you're on a farm. You're not running to Kroger for, cottage cheese. You've got your own cow. You've got your own garden. You've got your own barn. And you're slaughtering your own animals. I mean, that's
incredible.
The way she was raised. And she just brought that to this big family of ours.
And, that she said you have to get outside every day, play outside, have rosy cheeks, go on a hike, And right. I mean, don't you think that's why she's still able to live by herself and get on a ladder and garden?
Oh,
and
yeah.
All these...
She's super healthy. She has always been about physical exercise. And I asked her once, I said, "Where did that come from?" And she said, when you grow up on a farm and you have to run out to the fields in your bare feet over hard clods of dirt, and you have to do all this physical work,
right.
She said, it makes you strong. And she said, we were outside all day long. Then her dad got her a pony. She rode that thing bareback all over the farm. So she was used to being outside and she loved it.
Wow.
So she, again, brought that. We were city kids. It was a small town, but we were still city kids. She asked my father to build a chain link fence. So she could keep us all inside.
Contain the children.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. And so you were outside all day, even if
rain,
it was cold.
It doesn't matter. You were outside.
Rain, snow.
Yeah. It was
cold.
Rain, you won't melt. Sleet, it'll stop. Hot, go play under the shade. But my favorite one she always said was, if you told her you were bored, she either gave you an assignment or she said, go dig a hole to China. Don't you
that's
dare
my
come
mother
back
said that.
Well, I don't even know where that comes from. Did your mom say that?
Yeah, my mother said that, or she said, go bang your head against the wall.
I never heard that, but yeah.
Yeah, you didn't tell my mother you were bored either.
Oh, no.
She would definitely give you a chore or say one of those two things.
Exactly.
I mean, so what does your mom do now that she's 93? What does she do like during the day? Like what's her routine like?
Her routine. So she wakes she's very religious. She's very Catholic, and she wakes up probably with a prayer book in her hand. Aww. She has coffee in the morning, she has breakfast, and she makes her own oatmeal muffins and granola. She's super healthy, and she probably has 20,000 packs of frozen stuff in her freezer that she's, when you live alone, you don't have enough people to eat everything. So she probably microwaves some muffins that she's made. And then she goes to church.
This is all frozen stuff that she's made.
Yeah.
Right.
She has a whole, like if I opened up her freezer today, it would be full of oatmeal muffins, bread that she made. She'd find something homemade. And then she'd have a piece of fruit, and then she'd go to 8:00 Mass. And then she'd find her friend Janice. Janice would read the local paper, and Janice would drive it over. She also plays bridge. She's a card shark. She loves cards, and she's not a very good loser. Believe me, I think that's where we learned our competitive streak, is with my mother. And then she'll, putter around the house, do laundry, or as she says, she'll drive to town to get groceries, and she's still moving.
Man,
moving and grooving.
That's incredible. And she's still sharp as a tack, right?
She's very sharp. Now she's starting to slow down, and she's very hard of hearing. But she's got hearing aids, and if you speak, directly face to face, she understands everything you're saying. Yeah, I still play bridge with her. We've finally figured out how to play three-handed bridge because sometimes we're having a hard time finding a fourth, and she always wins.
Oh my gosh. Did
Yeah.
she teach you how to play bridge?
My husband was a big bridge player. My mom grew up, so I learned between my mom and my husband's family.
Oh man.
But we grew up with canasta, pitch, hearts, spades, Hollywood rummy. You name the card game, we played it. When you have that
That's
many
incredible.
kids, you always got a game. There's always a
Yeah.
game.
Always a game going on.
Always.
I mean, God, I can't even. And so then back to, I guess, the first time you lived alone, how old were you?
Oh gosh, I was probably 22, 23, the first time I ever lived alone by
And
myself.
didn't have three other people in your bedroom or.
No, it was one glorious year of solo living. I'd never done it before in my life. It was
And
remarkable.
you loved it.
I loved it.
And
Yeah.
did you feel like, everything could be kind of clean and organized and it didn't have to be in a big bucket with, 75 other coats and scarves and mittens? And I mean, is that one of the
Oh
things you
yeah,
loved
no,
about
it was an incredible sense of freedom that I could control. Okay, if there's a coat rack, I get to put my two coats on there versus I got to fight for a peg,
Yeah.
And I know where my shoes are. My sister hasn't stolen my shirt. I can
Right.
eat what I want when I want. It was just
God.
immense freedom in a way.
I can't even imagine. So, back to Mrs. Myers. So, when you were starting this, were you just like looking for a business to start? Were you thinking, what business could I start? Or did this just come to you? How did you get the idea for this?
It was kind of both. I had been a consultant, a marketing communications consultant. I had an agency with another partner. She was a creative director, and we did a ton of work for Target and consumer products. We were building brands. And, I was growing tired of being a consultant because I thought, gosh, all your assets go down the elevator every night. And it's a feast or famine business. I mean, you are constantly hustling your next job while you're doing the current work. It's quite an exhausting business. For me, I found it to be. And so I was kind of getting the itch for I don't want to be 65 and to be doing this. I want to do something else. I kept dreaming. I thought, oh gosh, I would love a product that would be made while I sleep at night. And so I was in a store, a big box store, and I think it was Linens and Things, which is long gone. But it was
remember
a
that.
big box. Yeah, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That and Bed Bath & Beyond.
Bed Bath and Beyond.
Yep, they're still around, by the way, which is
Yeah.
good. So I saw this pallet, a wooden pallet of cleaning products. And I remember looking, going, oh my gosh, that whole category is hideous. It has gold, big yellow starbursts that all it says is 70% off and more suds, bigger trigger. And the liquids were garish and they were all tipped over. And I thought, nobody wants that in their house. I'm forced to use this because I don't have any other alternative. And I thought, now, wouldn't that be awesome if this was like Aveda? Aveda is based in Minneapolis. I knew a lot about the company. It was an incredible brand, beautiful product. I used the product for years. And I thought, what if you could create personal care for the home? Much like your body care, much like your skin care, everything you love about your lotion, your face lotion, your body lotion, your shower gel, all that stuff. Wouldn't it be awesome if you could have that for your home? And then wouldn't it be great if you could have a singular fragrance across all cleaning lines? So if you love lavender, for example, you could have it in dish soap, hand soap, laundry, multi-purpose spray, toilet cleaner, all this stuff. And the customer loved it. She really embraced that concept.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of how we got started.
That's, and then, your packaging was so beautiful and the scents. Where did you get the inspiration for those scents? My favorite one, I used to get the basil all the time. I love that
basil.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
but you
basil.
had,
It's great.
Dewdrop and lavender and lemon verbena. What else did you have?
Mrs. Myers, boy, she has a lot now.
Yeah.
Radish, basil, lavender, all kinds of things. And
haven't done
then
the
the other
radish.
thing that we did is, I'll go back to your question about it.
Yeah.
We do holiday fragrances in cleaning. No one was doing that. So we created this whole giftable business that was also revolutionary. And people love that because in the holidays they were like, oh gosh, I want to get my pine fragrance or chestnut or pumpkin or whatever. But the inspiration for fragrance was I found a freelance chemist and she came out of the personal care industry and she was amazing with fragrance and amazing with formulating high performance cleaning products. And so we thought we probably should have an herbal fragrance, we probably should have floral, and we should have citrus. And let's just start with those big buckets, of fragrances and see how the consumer responds. That was kind of our thinking.
That was very smart because, it was really unlike anything. I remember finding them in the early 2000s at my friend Amy's house. She was my next door neighbor, and her house always smelled so good. And, she had a lot of nice scents in her house. But I remember washing my hands at her sink, and I was like, what is this? And I was like smelling my hands, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. And so that is what introduced me to it, to Mrs. Meyer's. I don't think I ever bought Caldrea, but to Mrs. Meyer's. And then I used it for quite a long time. It's, but it was truly unlike anything else. You're absolutely right. From being an entrepreneur though, like I know that you've had to, you had a big startup. I feel like a lot of my listeners are more like cottage industry kind of women who, they do have businesses. Can you kind of give them some good advice? I know in your book you talk a lot about, raising funds and so forth like that, but just if you have a very small business, what would be some good advice for that?
I think if you have a really small business is to be realistic about your ambitions. A lot of people come to me with a really small business and they think they're going to be Nike. Well, so I would always make sure that you really understand your goals. Your personal mission. It's so important. If you're going to have a small cottage business, you know what your niche is, and you want to be really good at that. Be really good at that. Don't think you're something else. So my advice is be true to yourself. I knew what I was going after. I was entering a huge $19 billion consumer market that was highly consumable. I knew if we got it going that it could be a big business because it's used so often, right? It's not like you're buying windows for your home you do once in your lifetime. You're buying dish soap, let's be honest, maybe 6 to 10 times a year. So I kind of had a different aim in my mind. But I always tell every business owner, be true to your vision and your mission. Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed. Or you think, I should be Nike or I should be Mrs. Meyer's, and you're not. You're doing something else. And so that's one, be true to yourself. 2, passion. In your darkest days, passion, I always say, is your night goggles when you're lost at sea. If you don't have a absolute passion for this, don't do it. Because when it gets ugly, when it gets dark, when things don't work out, when you're out of money, you're feeling like you're doing some sad sacking, you're going to look for the exit door, and you need to make sure you have a crystal clear vision of what you're going after. A third piece of advice, know your numbers. A lot of people who have these cottage industries just think, oh, I'll make a little money here and a little money there. And then if I say, well, what are you doing? What are your annual revenues? They don't really know. Well, you know what? I'm a big believer in math. I love math. I love budgets. Even though I'm English major, I think you should have a financial grasp of your business. That's huge. Even if you're doing, make it up, $100,000 a year, $50,000 a year, because you're going to get smarter about what it's costing you for that product or service. Also be attuned to your competitors. I'm making this up. If you're doing a pet grooming service, are you the only one on the block doing it? Do you have 6 competitors? How can you be differentiated? So I think the more you know about your industry, the better.
Yeah.
I see people in cottage industries who do well are really savvy about their world. They're very knowledgeable and they never, ever stop learning. Never. So that'd be my other piece of advice.
That's good advice. Where would you tell them to spend money? What's important?
Well, it depends on what they're doing. If they're in a consumer market that requires a lot of, let's just say, social media engagement, I'd probably have my investment there. Only if I had return on investment. If I'm just doing it to be, make friends on Instagram and I'm not selling anything, well, then don't do that. Be really clear about your objectives and then spend money. That's the other thing. The beautiful thing about when you're little, you can test all these things that are really low risk. And then when you find something that's your consumers are kind of find you, boy, put more money in that bucket. So it kind of depends on what you're doing. Some people say, well, I'm going to put all my money in my product. Great. But if people can't find you, then that's a problem. So I think you have to find the right balance of, again, go back to what is my mission? What is my vision? And I'm working with an entrepreneur right now, and I want to hold her accountable for what she really wants to accomplish. It's not what I want. It's for you. This is your deal, not mine. Believe me, I've made my fair share of mistakes. And I think the more you can be true to yourself, the better. And realistic. That's the other thing in that
be
comment.
Realistic. Yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding. That's a good, it's like you said, if you're not going to be like huge like Mrs. Myers, be realistic about who you are and what you're going to be.
And be happy with it or don't do it.
And I think that, going back to your mom, the way she raised you, I think there was a lot of like, no shame in making a mistake. Like, just let's figure this out. Okay, what went wrong? Let's figure, right? Is that part of it?
She once said to me, there's a whole chapter in my book called Fear and Failure. And she said, failure was never in my vocabulary. I just figured that was learning. Everything was learning. She could cook. She taught us to cook. She could sew. She could garden. If you made a mistake, I tell a story that the first time I frosted a cake, I used granulated sugar instead of powdered sugar. And she goes, well, now the boys will eat it. Don't worry about it. Frost the cake. Let's go. She was always just on to the next project.
She didn't have time to worry about
She didn't have time to worry about your mistake. She didn't view it as a mistake. It's like, oh, well, that's okay.
And so I guess, you have some pretty big balls. Sorry, Mrs. Thelma Meyer, if you're listening, that I said that your daughter has big balls, but she does, because you do. And you took a lot of risks. And talk about facing your fears a little bit and taking risks like that.
Yeah, the first time I became an entrepreneur, I was forced into it because I had my youngest daughter, who's fine now. She had cancer as a baby. And I was doing some part-time freelance work when she was about 6 months old. And I didn't really plan on going back to work full-time. I wanted to kind of take 3 to 4 months off. And then all of a sudden we had a sick baby. I take her to the hospital. Long story long, she has a Wilms tumor. She ends up on chemotherapy. I'm doing freelance work. She can't be in daycare. My husband comes home and says, I quit today. You can make more money than me. You go this business. I'll stay home and take care of the girls so they don't have to be in daycare. So, I say jokingly in the book, fear can be fun. Well, not right now. Failure was not an option back then. We had a mortgage payment. We didn't have a lot of savings and a baby with cancer. And so I was highly motivated to be at the time I was doing writing. I was doing speech writing, marketing writing. I was doing a lot of work for Target. And I just had more work than I knew what to do with. And so finally I teamed up with a creative director. But I was kind of pushed off the ledge the first time. But honestly, I wasn't a big fan. I didn't fit into corporate America. I worked there. I loved it. I learned a ton. But I always felt like a misfit. So I kind of, in the back of my mind, knew that I would do something on my own. I wasn't sure what, but I just didn't fit in, a lot of rules, a lot of silos. And so I was looking for something I could do on my own and claim as my own. And the other thing I was looking for was, if I work this hard, I want to earn my own money. I don't want to earn it for somebody else. That was kind of, back to my childhood. If you had a job, you got your own money. It was quite simple, and I wanted to reclaim that feeling, actually.
But what's your advice for facing fear, though? People are...
Well, I think one thing, acknowledge your fear. Say, okay, what am I really afraid of? Am I afraid of going broke? What you should do is, if you're going to do something monumental and you're terribly afraid, which I was, write down what's the worst thing that can happen. Just write it all down. And then this is what I did. I would go through the list and add a percentage of what I think would happen if that happened. like will go broke. Okay, that's actually 50-50. Can I live with that? Yes, I can, because I can always get a job. I was young enough at the time. I thought I can get a job. Will I lose my house? Can I live with that? I might lose my house, because we had a second mortgage on the house to start the business. But again, I thought I can get another house. I can get a job. I can pay that back. So you have to start asking yourself, can I live with these things? And if you can, go forward. I think the other thing about fear is tell yourself, are you ever ready? Once by the time you have something all figured out, the opportunity has passed.
Yeah.
And then what's the fun in that? I found taking risks kind of exhilarating. Perhaps it's my personality. And it's really life affirming to kind of live on the edge, if you will. So that's my personality. But I think the more you can write down what you're really afraid of and ask yourself, can I live with this? What's the worst that can happen? You can move forward or not. You maybe say, no, I'm not doing that. That's actually, no, I can't live with that.
Yeah.
It's very personal.
I feel like I said, you got some big balls. A lot of people would be like, I can't lose my house. I can't go broke. I mean, those were some big risks that you took. Big risks, big rewards. But, I think that's.
Yeah. And, I'm also a believer of all eggs in one basket. And watch that basket. A lot of people say, oh, don't put all your eggs in one basket. I think just the opposite.
Really?
If I'm going to take a big swing, a big risk, I'm going to put everything on the line, and then I'm going to make sure it happens, And so what does that cause? A high degree of focus, right? Mm-hmm. When you got your hands in 6 things, that's hard to focus when you're living on the edge. But one thing,
yeah,
I could put my head down every day and get to work.
Yeah, you had something to do. I feel like at this stage of life, a lot of women are examining, like, okay, what haven't I done? Like, if not now, when? Right. And, what's some advice for just figuring out where your passions lie and kind of getting started with that?
How it works for me is I'm a really curious person and I'm a visual learner. And I've done this throughout my entire career. And I think it's because I learned from some great merchants when I was early at Target was write down or take a picture of everything you find super interesting. Like if you're into art museums and you see this one type of art, I'm making this up, abstract art, take a picture. And I have this huge Excel document that I keep trends on. And it's music, websites, designers, movies, shape, silhouette. And if I see something interesting, I put it on there. I don't even know if it makes any sense.
Yeah.
But what I try to do then is if I'm kind of, something's percolating an idea, I go back to that and say, is there a red thread here? And I call this collecting the dots. Because people always ask, where do you get your ideas? How should I know? Just like your question. And I say you have to connect the dots. But you can't connect the dots if you don't have any dots. So how do I get dots? By walking around, by doing interesting things. I'm not saying this even costs any money. Just go in a store you've never been to. Try a foreign movie you've never seen before. Just expose yourself to the different things you've never thought about. And you're going to find that something starts to bubble up. That you're going to find yourself attracted to certain things.
That's,
right?
I was just going to use the words attracted to.
Magnetic, something. And there's a great book. Rick Rubin wrote it, and it's called some Creativity, the Art of Being Creative or something.
Rick Rubin, the producer?
Yeah. Yes, he wrote a creative book. And I highly recommend everyone read that book because...
What's it called again?
Oh gosh, I should have.
Well, it's okay. We can. People can look it up. It's on creativity.
Something like on being creative.
And
creative. It's a quick read. I've reread it so many times, but he gives you great advice for how to use what you have. Start where you are. What's that saying by Arthur Ashe? Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. You're not trying to be somebody you're not, especially at this age. Gosh, we've worked hard to get to survive here, right, Lauren?
Exactly. I mean, no, this is the time in life where you're supposed to enjoy what you have and figure out, okay, what haven't I done yet that I still want to do? And so, I think that's good advice about collecting the dots, because you can't connect them until you collect them. I think that's
Exactly.
really, yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. I like that, because we all are absolutely drawn to certain things. So let's talk about you, and you're aging well now, because
Oh boy.
you are fabulous. Can you share how old you are?
I'm 69.
You're 69. All right.
Yeah.
So what, you're just still going strong. What do you think, why do you think you've been able to age so fiercely?
You know, I've always, thanks to my mother, I've always worked out. I used to be a runner, all during my career, because that's all I could afford. I couldn't afford to go to some fancy club to work out. And frankly, I didn't have time, and I traveled so much, and I could always fit a pair of running shoes in my bag. And so, but then when I got into my 40s, my body was falling apart, probably from stress and running and traveling. And I discovered hot yoga on a fluke. And it really changed my life. I'm going to be really honest. I still practice to this day. I practice three to four times a week for 21 years. And I'm a big believer in hot yoga. It has kept me sane and flexible. And I don't know, I just love the heat and love working out. I think that's one thing, working out. Do you do
No, hot yoga. I love the heat and working out. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I work out I go to this place where the workout is in a sauna. My husband thinks I'm an absolute nut, but it's like 125 degrees in there. It's my happy place.
Oh no, I love that. Boy, that sounds awesome. And then again, I'm taking from my mother. We never had processed food in our house.
Right.
My motto is 5 colors a day, meaning 5 vegetables or fruit a day. So I really count. Lots of water. I don't drink that much anymore. I've just decided I feel better. And when I feel good things happen. That's kind of my personal motto.
Mm-hmm. Do you meditate or breath work or anything like that?
You know what? I used to. I haven't done that for a while, but I had several years where I was meditating every day for about 20 to 30 minutes. I need to get back to that.
Yeah. And you're still just, you just wrote a book, so congratulations on that. That's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
But what kind of business things are you doing these days?
I sit on a consumer products board, and I often am called for advice on certain things. When I first left Mrs. Meyer's, excuse me, I invested in several startups, and I lost a whole bunch of money. And I decided, you know what, I'm not doing that anymore. And it was interesting. So I was on the Guy Raz podcast, How I Built This.
Yeah.
And he asked me, Lauren, the same question. What are you doing now? And I said, I invested in all these consumer startups, and I lost a bunch of money. And he goes, Monica, every entrepreneur tells me that.
Yeah.
And it's because I'm a better entrepreneur than an investor. And so I decided I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not good at it. I don't know how to look at deals. I don't know how to structure their valuation. I'm just not doing it. So when people call me for advice, I say, hey, if you can send me an executive summary, one page only, about what you're trying to accomplish, how big the market is, and it makes sense with my skill set, I'll help you. But no, I'm not going to get involved in things I don't understand, like crypto or AI or, I'm a product geek. That's what I do. That's what I know a lot about.
Yeah.
So I do a little bit of that too.
But I just think that you're keeping your mind, you're working on projects, you're still, involved in things. I don't see you retired and sitting around in your garden all day, but I could be wrong. Am I wrong?
No, I'm not. I'm just a naturally curious person. I love creative projects. I just do. I always have. And so, that's what I kind of get involved in. I've written this book. I've written 3 screenplays.
Oh, wow.
I've got another book idea. So writing has become a passion for me lately.
Yeah, and you started out as a writer, and you're a great writer. The book was really funny. It was very funny. I loved, you had all the curse words crossed out because you're like, my mom's going to read this.
She saw that. So I worked with a fabulous design team. They're the ones who created all the packaging for Mrs. Meyer's. And I had the word bitch in there, and I I was like, oh, I don't know if I should have this in there. So I just crossed it out. I showed the designers when I brought over the books that I read because I mark them all up. I underline,
Yeah.
because I want to keep
Yeah.
notes of, again, I'm collecting the dots. I want to keep track of what I think is
Right.
interesting. And she goes, oh, let's just keep that in there. So all the
It's so
curse words
cute.
have been
All the curse words are
blackened out.
it's really funny. But I mean, it's just your writing is it's very light, it's very direct, it's very easy to understand because you're breaking down some hard concepts, business concepts, but it's real but just also really funny and just hilarious stories of your childhood. I really enjoyed it. I
Oh,
mean,
good. I survived. That's
sur-
half the battle,
I
right?
mean, when I think about your mother and these 9 children, like I mean, I have 3 children and I was barely holding it together. I have nothing but great admiration and that she did such a good job. That's really the thing. It's not just that she raised 9 children, but she did it so just really with thoughtfulness and really raised these great humans. So hats
Yeah,
off to Thelma.
yeah, hats off to Thelma. She has a lot of common sense. If I always say my mother has a PhD in common sense. She took her work serious, but not herself. She has a great sense of humor, and she just has a lot of joy in the little things.
Yeah, she seems like she has a great sense of humor. Like when somebody asked her, I think it was at one of your pitch meetings, and she was along and said, "How in the world did you have 9 children?" What'd she say?
Oh my gosh! So we're in New York. We've written this book when at the height of Mrs. Meyer's success, and it's a cleaning book. It's essentially a marketing tool. So we're in New York trying to find a publisher. Our agent is taking us around to all these big fancy meetings in New York. My mom is riding around in a big old black limo. She's all excited. So we go into this meeting in New York. I think it was a huge publisher. And this large, buxom woman from Texas just grabs my mom and goes, oh my God, I love Mrs. Myers. I love you. I'm so glad you're here. So my mom is agog, right? She's all excited. She's like a Hollywood starlet. So we sit down at the conference table, and this woman turns to my mom and goes, how in the world, Thelma, did you have 9 children in 10 years? And my mother says, well, I had a box of 48 Kotex and I never got through it. And I literally was mortified. I first of all, I'd never ever heard that come out of her mouth. Not even as a child.
Gosh.
I didn't, and who knows what a Kotex is anymore? No
Yeah.
one.
That's what my mom used to call them too. Just call them Kotex. I mean, I guess
Oh
that was
yeah.
like Band-Aid,
I was, yeah, I
the
was so
brand, the
embarrassed.
brand name. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, so what is your best piece of advice for aging well? If you had to just distill it down to one thing.
Keep moving. My mother would say, if you stop moving, you stop.
I think
Eat
that's,
well, say yes.
say yes. That's so good.
She says yes to most everything.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What?
Unless
I
it's
mean,
against her religion. Unless it's a sin.
oh, she's missing out on some fun things. I
Well,
don't know.
tell me about it. Yeah.
What? This is probably just like too crazy of a question with your upbringing, but what do you think that you learned about aging well from your mother?
Watching her in action, she just was adventuresome. When we were kids, my father built a motorhome. He was an engineer, and they drove us out west to all the national parks. They loved the national parks. My parents loved to travel. My dad would drive from the East Coast to the West Coast and be the happiest person on earth. He'd drive all night if he could. He loved driving with his Stanley thermos of coffee. And I think it's because when he was driving, he was by himself. Everybody else was in the back of the motorhome. And
Oh
if
my
you could
God.
ride shotgun, this is the other skill that was very important in our family, how to read a map.
Oh,
We
Lord.
learned very quickly, when you grow up with your parents who are farmers, you learn very quickly. You go outside and which way is north, south,
Oh,
etc.
that's so. I'm
And where
jealous.
you are. Navigation
Wow.
was huge in our family. So, what did I learn about aging? I guess, go on hikes. She was And this stuff isn't expensive, right? You're just going on a hike and you're finding a peach farm where you can buy lugs of peaches. And, she was always about lots of product, lots of fruits and vegetables in a lug or free. That was the other thing my mom loved because she was a big canner. So,
Wow.
yeah, I just learned a lot. I don't know. She just goes through every day saying yes and eating healthy and taking walks
And
at her age.
it sounds like being grateful and observing the beauty of nature and just so many things, that she just seems happy and grateful for everything.
Yeah, she walks around, when she takes a walk, she walks around with a trash bag so she can pick up the trash. She'll never walk by a tossed out cup out of a car. She's always picking up, always commenting on other people's lawn or flowers or, she loves roses. She loves her lilacs. And she has bird feeders and she watches the birds come in and she knows more about Iowa birds. There's a great park out by her house. And just this last summer, I have 4 grandkids and she took them out there and she wanted to show them how to see the birds. And she just loves nature. I think when you're a farm child, you're a student of the great outdoors because you had to be.
Yeah, that's great.
To survive.
Do you have a favorite health or beauty product?
Oh gosh, I was so glad you asked me this. So I have to tell you a funny story. So my sister Jane's partner asked me for my list of what I do at night.
Oh, do you have a whole list?
I'm not gonna show
tell
it
us.
to you. No, because it's embarrassing. But anyway, I lined
embarrassing?
up. Well, because it's too many things. I lined up about 8 products, and I took a picture, and she goes, "Oh, I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing that." But I really like Wedela.
How do you spell
their Wedela.
Oh, yeah.
Am I saying it right? Maybe I'm not saying it
I don't
right.
know. I've seen it. Like I know they have that skin food and
Oh, that's the best.
yeah.
I put that all over my face.
I've used their products.
They have great products.
Yeah.
They also make just a lot of great hand cream, but I use their products a lot. I also like, I wrote this down so I would pronounce it correctly. Phytomer, the Rose Cleansing Toner.
How do you spell that?
Phytomer.
MAR?
And it's MER.
MER.
Phytomer. And it's the Rose Cleansing Toner. I love that. And then I love the Charlotte Tilbury, I think she calls it Magic Cream, and then she does an amazing face oil.
Ooh.
And then I have gray fuzzy hair, so I use I use the Orbe hair oil.
Oh, so I think how do you spell that?
I think it's Oribe. They make a beautiful hair oil.
Hair oil. Your hair is gorgeous.
Oh,
I love
thank you.
the cut and the color. It's just it's really beautiful. Okay, well, those are some good shares. Thank you. And then
You're welcome.
my last question, what's
what
your
is it?
favorite concert you've ever been to?
Oh, I saw Lenny Kravitz outdoor last Labor Day. Okay, he brings it. He leaves it all on the field. It was an outdoor concert. He is sexy, talented.
Oh my God.
And he is not only fun to watch, but he, at the end, walked through this huge crowd singing Honey, and he had the world in the palm of his hand.
He's a panty dropper.
He is a true rock star. Mm-hmm. If you look in the dictionary, rock star, it says Lenny Kravitz.
Oh God, that's a good one. I have never seen him. I don't know how that is because I love him so much. He's incredible.
He's amazing. It's inspiring how good he is.
Ugh, that's a good one. You brought it. Okay. Well, Monica, thank you for sharing everything. And everybody, please check out Monica's book. What's it called again?
Can I show it to you?
Yes, please.
Okay. It's called
gorgeous.
I Bottled My Mother. It's just like the packaging.
Yep.
And you can find it on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Target. and it'll be out at the end of March.
Yes. By the time this airs, it'll already be out. So
Great.
Everybody get a copy. It's really a good book. And I mean, especially if you have a business or if you have kids, it's a good one. I mean, I love it.
Yeah. Great.
Right.
Thank you, Lauren. This was a lot
Monica.
of fun.
It was a lot of fun. You're a great guest. Thank you for everything.
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, friend. From my heart to yours, be well until we meet again.